Marcus had been in the construction business for 32 years, and in all that time he'd never seen someone get roasted quite like this on a job site. The Colorado sun beat down on the half-finished house in Boulder as his crew stood around the entrance, staring at the doorway he'd just installed. It was wide, really wide, 42 inches instead of the standard 36. "Hey Marcus, someone planning to drive a truck through here?" Jake, the youngest electrician on the crew, couldn't help himself. The others snickered, pretending to measure imaginary waistlines. Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand, his calloused fingers showing decades of honest work. He was a big man, not from overeating but from the kind of solid build that came from lifting materials since he was 16. His gray hair peeked out from under his weathered baseball cap. "Just following the plan," he muttered, though everyone knew he'd personally modified the architect's specifications. The homeowners, a young tech couple from California named Devin and Priya, had approved it without question. They trusted him. That was his reputation. Marcus Chen, the contractor who thought of everything. But his crew didn't see it that way. Throughout the morning, the jokes kept coming. Every time someone walked through that door, they'd make a show of it, spreading their arms wide, shuffling sideways like they were navigating a canyon. By lunch, word had spread to the other trades working on the property. The HVAC guys showed up to run their ductwork and couldn't resist. "Expecting a parade, Marcus?" one of them called out. The plumber nearly dropped his pipe wrench laughing. Marcus ate his sandwich alone in his truck, watching them through the windshield. He'd dealt with mockery before. When you did things differently, people always had something to say. But it stung more than usual because these were guys he'd worked with for years. Mike, his own foreman, had even posted a photo in their work group chat with the caption, "When you order doors from the highway department." His phone buzzed constantly with laughing emojis. The thing was, Marcus had his reasons. Good ones. His older sister Claire used a wheelchair after a skiing accident 5 years back. He'd watched her struggle through countless doorways, scraping knuckles, getting stuck, having to back up and angle herself just right. Standard doors were 36 inches. Wheelchair width, 24 to 27 inches. That left barely any room for hands, bags, or another person to help. But he hadn't explained this to his crew. Marcus wasn't the type to get personal on job sites. Work was work. You showed up, you built things right, you went home. Emotions stayed in the truck. Still, as the afternoon wore on and the jokes continued, something shifted in his chest. A tightness he hadn't felt in a long time. Pride mixed with frustration mixed with something else. Doubt maybe. Was he wrong? Had he let his personal experience cloud his professional judgment? By 4 o'clock, the framers arrived to start on the interior walls. They took one look at that wide door and burst out laughing. "Boss man here planning for the Thanksgiving parade," one said, slapping Marcus on the shoulder a little too hard. Marcus said nothing. He just kept working, measuring the next section, marking his cuts, moving forward. That's what he always did. Keep moving forward. But Devin noticed. The homeowner had stopped by after work, still in his hoodie and jeans from his tech startup downtown. He walked through the door, then stopped, walked back through it, then stood there studying it with his hand on his chin. Marcus braced himself for another comment. Instead, Devin smiled. "This is really nice," he said. "My mom uses a walker. She's visiting from San Diego next month. This'll make her trip so much easier." Marcus felt something loosen in his chest, but before he could respond, Jake walked past carrying a bundle of wiring. "Yeah, and it'll make moving furniture easier too," he said with a smirk. "And bringing in circus equipment. Really thinking ahead, boss." The other guys cracked up. Devin's smile faded slightly, confused by the tension. Marcus just nodded at the homeowner and went back to work. 3 more hours until quitting time. 3 more hours of this. Then he could go home to his small apartment in Louisville, heat up something simple, and call Claire like he did every Tuesday. He didn't know it then, but the next morning would bring something that would shut every single one of them up. Something that would turn his wide door from a punchline into something else entirely. Something that would make Jake's laughter die in his throat and turn Mike's jokes to ash. The Colorado evening cooled as the crew packed up. Marcus was the last to leave, as always. He stood in that wide doorway one more time, running his hand along the frame, and headed home. The mockery escalated overnight. When Marcus arrived at 6:30 the next morning, someone had taped a hand-drawn sign above the wide door. Semi-truck entrance. The letters were big, crude, done in thick black marker. He pulled it down without a word, crumpling it into his pocket. But that was just the beginning. By 7, when the full crew assembled for the morning briefing, Mike stood there with a grin plastered across his face. He'd brought props, actual props. A toy car, a toy truck, and a toy semi, lined up on the tailgate of his pickup. "All right, everyone, gather round," Mike announced like a carnival barker. "Today's lesson: choosing the right door for the right vehicle." The crew howled. Even the younger apprentices, who usually kept quiet around Marcus, were doubled over. Marcus felt heat creep up his neck. "This is a 36-inch door," Mike continued, holding up the toy car. "This is what normal people use. But this," he held up the semi-truck, "this is what Marcus spec'd." Jake was recording it on his phone. Marcus could see the red recording light, could imagine it already being uploaded to their group chat, spreading to other crews across Boulder, becoming a story that would follow him. "Enough," Marcus said, his voice low. But Mike was on a roll. "Come on, boss, we're just having fun. No harm meant. It's just, we've all been doing this a long time, and none of us have ever seen anything quite like." I said enough. The silence that followed was sharp. Marcus never raised his voice. In 32 years, he'd built his reputation on being steady, calm, unshakable. But something in his tone made Mike's smile falter. The crew dispersed awkwardly, grabbing tools, heading to their stations. But Marcus could still hear the whispers, the barely suppressed laughter. Around 10, the building inspector showed up for the rough framing check. Warren Hodges, a man Marcus had known for 15 years. They'd worked dozens of projects together, always professional, always respectful. Warren walked through the house, checking measurements, nodding at the quality of work. Then he got to the front entrance. He stopped, stared, pulled out his tape measure and checked the width himself. 42 inches, Warren said, writing something on his clipboard. "That's non-standard, Marcus." "This to code," Marcus replied. "Exceeds ADA requirements by 6 inches. Warren looked at him over his reading glasses. "Sure, it's to code. It's just unusual. Really unusual. The owners specifically request this. They approved it." Warren made another note, and Marcus felt his stomach drop. He wasn't writing a violation, but he was documenting it. Creating a paper trail. The kind of thing that came up in conversations that got mentioned at the inspector's office, that became another story about Marcus Chen and his weird ideas. The call came at 2:15 in the afternoon. Marcus was on the roof helping with the skylight installation when his phone buzzed in his pocket. He almost didn't answer, but something made him look at the screen. Claire. His sister never called during work hours. Never. He climbed down the ladder fast, his heart already racing. "Mark," she said, her voice tight, "there's a fire. At the Riverside development. The new condos on Pearl Street." Marcus knew those condos. He knew them well. His former partner, Tom Whitfield, was the general contractor on that project. They'd split their business 2 years ago over disagreements about cutting corners. Tom wanted cheaper, faster. Marcus wanted it done right. "Is anyone hurt?" he asked, already walking to his truck. "They're saying people are trapped. The news is covering it live." "Mark, the interior doors, they're all standard 30-inch. The smoke filled the hallways so fast and people couldn't get their wheelchairs through. Mrs. Chun from Unit 204, you remember her? She's stuck." Marcus felt ice in his veins. He turned on his truck radio, flipping to the news station. The reporter's voice crackled through, urgent and breathless. "Firefighters are attempting rescue operations at the Riverside condos where a kitchen fire has spread due to high winds. Multiple residents remain trapped as smoke has filled the narrow hallways. Emergency crews report that evacuation has been severely hampered by standard-width doorways that cannot accommodate wheelchairs and walkers quickly enough in these critical moments." Marcus sat frozen in his truck. His crew had gathered nearby, phones out, listening to the same broadcast. The jokes had stopped. Every face was pale. Jake walked over slowly, his phone still in his hand but the screen dark now. "Boss," he said quietly, "is that the project where Tom went with the cheaper specs?" Marcus nodded, unable to speak. Mike appeared at his window. "They're saying on Twitter that 3 people are trapped because their wheelchairs won't fit through the bedroom doors fast enough. The smoke is too thick." The radio continued. Fire Chief Rodriguez stated that every second counts in situations like these, and that wider doorways can mean the difference between life and death during emergency evacuations. The investigation will examine whether building standards need to be revised. Marcus looked at his crew, then at the wide door standing proud in Devin and Priya's entrance. 42 inches. Room for a wheelchair and a helper side by side. Room for someone carrying another person. Room for panic and fumbling and the chaos that came with real emergencies. If you're watching this and wondering why details like doorway width matter, Marcus thought this is why. Lives hang on inches. And if you care about building things that actually protect people, maybe hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next is going to change how you think about every door you've ever walked through. By 4 o'clock, the news confirmed what everyone had feared. 2 residents hadn't made it out. Mrs. Chun, the elderly woman Claire had mentioned, and a veteran named David Park who used a motorized wheelchair. The fire marshal's preliminary report was brutal. Standard 30-inch doorways had created fatal bottlenecks when seconds mattered most. Marcus sat in his truck, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at nothing. A knock on his window made him look up. It was Jake, and behind him stood the entire crew. No phones out, no smirks, just men who suddenly understood what they'd been mocking for 2 days straight. "Boss," Jake said when Marcus rolled down the window, "we need to say something. We were wrong. Really wrong." Marcus shook his head. "It's not about being right or wrong. It's about people going home to their families." "But it is about being right," Mike said, stepping forward. His voice cracked slightly. "You saw something the rest of us missed. You built for the worst day, not the best day. That's what separates good contractors from great ones." The words hung in the air. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Not pride exactly, but a bone-deep exhaustion mixed with relief that someone finally understood. Devin called 20 minutes later. "Marcus, I just saw the news. That fire. Those doorways." He paused, and Marcus could hear Priya talking urgently in the background. "We want you to make every interior door in our house 42 inches. Every single one. Bedrooms, bathrooms, closets. All of them. That'll add cost," Marcus warned. "Material, labor, custom frames. I don't care what it costs." Devin's voice was firm. "My mother is coming to live with us permanently. Her walker is getting harder for her to manage. In a few years, it might be a wheelchair. And when I saw those people on the news, I saw my mom. So whatever it takes, Marcus. Whatever it takes." That evening, something remarkable happened. Warren Hodges, the building inspector, showed up at the site unannounced. He walked straight to Marcus, who was still sitting in his truck, and handed him a business card. "City Council meeting next Thursday at 7, Warren said. "They're doing an emergency session on building codes. Fire Marshal wants to mandate wider interior doors for new residential construction. They need contractors to testify. Real ones, not politicians. I gave them your name." Marcus looked at the card, then at Warren. "I'm just a contractor." Warren smiled slightly. "You're the contractor who saw what was coming before anyone else did. That fire is going to change everything. And you're going to be part of that change whether you like it or not." The city council chambers were packed. Marcus had never seen so many people crammed into the oak-paneled room on Thursday night. Families of the Riverside victims sat in the front rows, some holding photographs. Contractors filled the back. Architects lined the sides. The local news had 3 cameras running. Marcus wore his one good button-down shirt, the blue one Claire had bought him last Christmas. His hands felt too big, too rough for this place of polished wood and microphones. When they called his name, his legs almost didn't work. He walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone down to his height, and looked out at a sea of faces. Some he recognized. Most he didn't. In the third row, he spotted his crew. All of them. They'd come on their own time. "My name is Marcus Chun," he started, his voice steadier than he expected. "I've been building houses in Colorado for 32 years. I'm here to talk about doors." A few people shifted in their seats. Doors weren't glamorous. They weren't the kind of thing that made headlines. 2 days before the Riverside fire, my crew spent the better part of 48 hours mocking me for installing a 42-inch front door. They called it excessive, unnecessary, a waste of the homeowner's money. Marcus paused, glancing at Mike and Jake. They were right to question me. I didn't explain my reasoning. I just did what I thought was right. He told them about Claire, about watching her struggle through doorways for 5 years, about the inches that separated independence from humiliation, dignity from frustration, about Mrs. Chun and David Park, who ran out of inches when they needed them most. "Standard doors are built for average days," Marcus said, his voice growing stronger. "But emergencies aren't average. Panic isn't average. Smoke and fear and carrying someone you love, that's not average. We need to build for the worst day, not the best day." The room was silent. Even the council members had stopped shuffling papers. A 42-inch door costs maybe $200 more than a 36. For a whole house, you're looking at an extra $2,000. That's less than most people spend on appliances. Marcus looked directly at the council. $2,000. That's what we're saying 2 lives are worth? When he finished, the applause started slowly, then built. It wasn't polite political clapping. It was real. The kind that came from people who understood. 3 weeks later, Boulder became the first city in Colorado to mandate 42-inch doorways for all new residential construction. The code would be called the Chun Standard, though Marcus tried to get them to change it. They refused. Devin and Priya's house became a showcase. Architects brought clients to see it. Other contractors came to take measurements, to understand how Marcus had made it work without sacrificing design. And Jake? He got the Chun Standard logo tattooed on his forearm. Small, simple, just the numbers, 42 inches. 18 months later, Marcus stood in the lobby of the Colorado Builders Association annual conference in Denver. The banner above the stage read, "Innovation in Accessibility, Building for Everyone." His phone buzzed. A text from Claire with a photo. She was at a new restaurant in Boulder, smiling in her wheelchair, positioned easily in a wide doorway. Caption, "Look familiar?" They used the Chun Standard. I didn't even have to ask for help getting in. Marcus smiled, slipping the phone back into his pocket. The conference had invited him as a keynote speaker. Him. A guy who still showed up to job sites at 6:30 every morning with coffee in a thermos and sawdust on his boots. But the Chun Standard had spread beyond Boulder. Fort Collins adopted it. Then Denver. Then the entire state. Now other states were watching, considering, debating. "Boss, you ready?" Mike appeared at his elbow wearing an actual suit. He'd become Marcus's project manager after they'd landed 3 major contracts specifically requesting the Chun Standard in their builds. The business had tripled. They'd hired 12 new people. Marcus adjusted his tie, still uncomfortable with the formality. "As ready as I'll ever be." On stage, he told the story again. But this time, he added something new. He talked about the letters he'd received. Hundreds of them. From families with elderly parents. From veterans. From a mother whose son had cerebral palsy. From a man who'd survived a stroke. All of them saying the same thing. "Thank you for seeing us." One letter came from Tom Whitfield, his former partner. It was brief, handwritten, the ink smudged in places. "Marcus, I was wrong. About the corners we cut. About putting profit over people. The Riverside fire broke something in me. I've sold my company. I'm going back to school to study accessible design. I hope someday you can forgive me. I'm trying to do better. Tom." Marcus had framed that letter. It hung in his office not as a trophy, but as a reminder that people could change. That tragedy could transform. After his speech, a young architecture student approached him. She was in a wheelchair, papers clutched in her lap. "Mr. Chun, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm designing my senior project around universal accessibility. Because of you, I believe buildings can be beautiful and inclusive. That moment right there made everything worth it. Every joke, every doubt, every hard conversation. Marcus drove home that evening as the sun set over the Rockies, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. His phone rang. It was Devin. Marcus, we're having a baby. Priya's pregnant. And we just realized those wide doors? They're perfect for a stroller. For late-night emergencies. For all the chaos that's coming. You built our house for a future we didn't even know we needed. Marcus pulled over, emotion tightening his throat. That's the job, Devin. Building for futures people can't see yet.